What's going on, everybody? My name's Zach. I'm a six-figure earner, and I'm going to take a close look at the 2024 election. With the election less than a week away, I want to touch on the four biggest issues for most American voters and how those policies will affect people like me and people of all different backgrounds. Number four is a huge factor that I think a lot of people haven't taken into consideration. Let's dive into it. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Make sure to like, leave a comment, and share with somebody you think needs to see this if you find any of this valuable. Let's go back to the video. Let's talk about the number one issue for many Americans, the economy. We're going to break down Harris's economy plan, Trump's economy plan, and then address some common misconceptions. When people talk about Trump and Kamala's economic plan, it's usually oversimplified in this way. Kamala wants tax cuts for individuals that are low income. She wants to help them out while she taxes the ultra wealthy and makes them pay their fair share. Trump's tax plan, on the other hand, is usually oversimplified in this way. He wants to give tax breaks to his buddies that are billionaires and millionaires, while the rest of us struggle to get by day. But that's a massive oversimplification. Let's take a look on what's really going on. Let's start with Kamala's economic plan. Kamala's plan is to offer more government-funded programs. These programs include things like daycare, healthcare access, and other government-funded programs to help people in their day-to-day life if they don't have the means to do it for themselves. Now, these programs need funding, so the government has to find a way to fund these programs. Harris plans to do this by increasing taxes on businesses and high-income earners. Here's the misconception. A lot of people think this just applies to the ultra-rich and ultra-successful massive businesses. This tax increase includes all businesses that are corporations, big and small. So that means the multi-billion-dollar Silicon Valley tech company, as well as the mom and pop restaurant in your neighborhood. That also includes the local mechanic who owns his own shop. Think of it like this. If there was a new tax bill that was proposed for athletes, but most people just hear it and it's portrayed to them as though only applies to NFL athletes. Most people that are rugby players, hockey players, high school basketball players think the tax is only for them, and so they may be all in on it. But when they read the fine print of the policy, they find out this covers all athletes, whether you're professional, whether you're a collegiate athlete, whether you're an amateur athlete, whether you just do sports for recreation. This tax applies to all of them. So in the same way, that's how this tax policy's somewhat been portrayed and understood by the American people. It applies to all corporate structures, regardless of how much the owner of the company makes, regardless of how big the company is. These tax increases affect them all. Now let's take a look at Trump's plan. The media often portrays his plan as a tax cut for all his billion-dollar buddies. While it's true that massive businesses will benefit, similar to Kamala's plan, his policy applies to all businesses, big or small. So if you're a small business owner that doesn't make a lot, policies still apply to you. His plan keeps the corporate tax at 21% rather than 28 to 30%. So whether you're running a Fortune 500 company or a local coffee shop, your business would see tax relief. That means that entrepreneurs and small business owners, even those just starting out, have less of a tax burden and more money they can reinvest into the growth of their business. So how do these different policies affect different groups? Under Harris's plan, people who plan on being employees the rest of their life, have no aspirations of starting their own business or an entrepreneur, they're definitely going to receive some short-term benefits. They're going to have easier access to government-assisted programs, but in the long term, this is what typically happens when you up taxes for corporations. You've got a company that's taxed. The company is now having to pay more money. Where is the first place that company is going to start to cut costs? Their overhead and the people they pay. If you work at a company that's being taxed, what are they going to do? Is the owner of the company going to say, I'm going to lower my wage in order to offset these taxes? No. The first person that's going to feel the impact is going to be the employee. The second person that's going to feel the impact is going to be the customer. What they're going to do is they're going to lower wages and they're going to up the price. So while you might receive more benefits from government-assisted programs, you'll likely see an increase in prices, a decrease in wages as these businesses try to adjust to this new tax structure. Now, for business owners, that means a tax increase across the board. Small business, big business, and you're going to have to find a way to offset that extra cost. Under Trump's plan, large and small business owners see a tax cut and benefits when it comes to taxes to make it easier for them to reinvest back into their business. Now, for employees, what might that mean? That might mean increased wages. It might mean decreased costs. But to be honest, the owner of the company could say, I've got this extra money here. I'm going to put it into my wages. Or they could give it to their employees, or they could cut the cost and help the consumers and the employees out. Whether they'll do that or not is a different question, but at least they have that option. As a six-figure earner myself and a business owner, I'm looking to keep as much money in my pocket as possible so I can reinvest into my business and give money where I see fit, rather than the government saying, this is where we're going to put your money and we're going to fund this program that you may or may not disagree with. Now, what about you? When you hear these different policies, what group do you fall into, and where do you see the advantages for you as well as the disadvantages? Comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Now let's move on to the second issue, immigration. Immigration is a major issue in this election, but we've got to make a key distinction that many Americans seem to not understand today. Legal immigration versus illegal immigration. What's the difference? Legal immigration is someone who goes to a country legally and follows the process of that law in order to become a citizen. Illegal immigration is when someone bypasses those laws without the country being aware and stays in the country without following the laws and procedures to become a citizen. It could be for whatever reason, but at the end of the day, there's legal immigration and illegal immigration. For the most part, both parties agree legal immigration is good, illegal immigration is bad. But how they handle these two situations are different. Let's dive into it. Now, here's Harris's policy on how she's going to try to fix illegal immigration. Rather than prioritizing deporting them back to their original country of origin, her plan is to just integrate these undocumented immigrants into the society and give them an easier path to citizenship since they're already here. Now, here's some of the implications that come with avoiding deportation. Now, when an influx of people come in that are undocumented and that do not contribute to the taxes of that area in the same way that people who have been there contribute, it causes problems and economic strain on that area. There are some voting right concerns from people expressing the fact that if people came illegally, broke the law, they may not care about the actual laws that this country has in place if the very first thing they did to get here was breaking a law. It creates a situation where individuals who broke the law coming to the United States have a voice in shaping the laws in the United States. The third issue with this is it somewhat encourages illegal immigration. So if people know that if they come here illegally, once they're found out, they will be on the fast track to citizenship, for many people, that can be an encouraging green light to say, I'll just become a citizen that way. Because the other way has a long line that could take 10 to 15 years for me to ever become a citizen. Why don't I just go in this way and then become a citizen? Now let's talk about Trump's approach. Trump takes a strict stance on illegal immigration. It emphasizes the importance of the current laws right now. It sets a standard and lets people know who are coming and trying to immigrate to the United States that this is a nation of laws. So when you come here, there needs to be a mindset that you will follow the laws in place. In summary, Harris's plan aims at addressing the illegal immigration issue by creating a fast track to citizenship for those people that are in the country illegally. And then Trump's focuses on enforcing the current laws in place and saying, hey, you skipped the line, you got to go back. Now let's move on to the third issue, healthcare. Kamala's plan is aimed at expanding ACA, expanding healthcare through the government agencies to allow people that are middle and low income earners to have cheaper access to healthcare plans. So if you don't have insurance through your employer, this will be beneficial for you. Now, some of the critics of this plan say that that'll increase wait times at the ER. It'll put an extra strain on the healthcare system where more people will be coming in for different types of surgeries, different operations, and it'll limit the amount of accessibility for most Americans. Now, while this expansion seeks to increase and give broad coverage to everybody, it's through that first plan of increased taxes on businesses and high-income earners that's going to pay for this. She also advocates for the government to negotiate drug prices with pharmaceutical companies. This could reduce the out-of-pocket expenses for many consumers. Trump emphasizes reducing government involvement. The idea is to promote competition to allow lower costs and to increase the transparency in healthcare pricing. So when you go to a plan, you know what you're paying for, you know what's going to happen, when you go for what service, and how much your plan is going to cost. This approach could lead to more options instead of just a government-funded option, and could allow for competitive pricing, where companies are competing against each other trying to give their customers better prices. Trump also supports expanding HSAs. If you're not familiar with HSA, look up Health Savings Account. Those are accounts that you can use specifically for your health when it comes to surgeries, when it comes to medication, when it comes to paying off medical bills. HSAs are pre-tax dollars for medical expenses. And this will lead to savings when it comes to taxes for individuals that use their HSA account. Now let's move to one of the most controversial topics in America right now. Number 4, abortion. This is a very tricky subject for one reason. There hasn't been a lot of transparency, and a lot of Americans don't understand how this works. So, first, let's clarify what is an abortion. Abortion is the intentional termination of a human pregnancy by any means with the intention other than to produce a live birth or to remove a dead fetus. Abortion is not the removal of an already dead baby or fetus. That is not an abortion. So if you have a miscarriage, that is not an abortion. An abortion is when there is an intention to end the life of the life that is inside the mother. This is not making an argument for whether it's good or bad. This is just stating what abortion is. The frustrating thing for a lot of American voters is, okay, I hear this, I hear that. What is an abortion? That's what it is. Now, Trump's plan is, let's just leave this to each state for the voters to decide for themselves what they want to do in each state, rather than saying the entire country is going to say no abortions or yes, abortions are legal. Most Americans are not aware that abortion is never medically necessary, and I will explain why. Remember, abortion means the intentional destruction or killing of that baby or fetus that is in the womb that's growing. I know someone very close, personally, a close friend, that was not able to take their pregnancy to term because the mother's body was essentially having an allergic reaction to the baby inside. So what they did is they took the baby out, put the baby on life support so that the mother would not die. That's not an abortion. An abortion would be when they take the baby out and then just leave the baby out and let the baby die. That would be an abortion. An abortion would be when they chop the baby up while inside the mother's womb and pull the baby out piece at a time. That's an abortion. If there is any attempt to try to save the baby as well as the mother, if there's any attempt, even if it's a failed attempt, that is not considered an abortion. Even if there's one little cell that implanted in the wrong part of the mother's body, and so it needs to come out, even if they try to take that cell and put it in a petri dish and grow it from there, that's not an abortion. Even if it fails and they just don't have the technology for it to actually work, but they try, that's not an abortion. The abortion is only when there is an intention to kill the child or the fetus. So, when it comes to Kamala's policy, there's been a lot of misconception about it. And here's where it gets really interesting. There is a mainstream idea that Kamala's policy is there only for health reasons of the mother. They always call it female and women's reproductive health. And the narrative is that if they do not have access to this, they are vulnerable and can die. Now, here's the only issue. Every single state in the United States, including the most conservative states, have an exception for abortion when the mother's life is at risk. You do not even have to try to save the baby's life. Why is this a women's health situation when there's no states in the United States that say, if your life is at risk, you still have to go through with the pregnancy? That's not the case in any states, even the most conservative ones in the United States. Kamala's stance is that the United States should allow abortion and have no restrictions as to why the abortion is needed. Here's an interesting fact. Less than 2% of all abortions are done because the mother's life is at risk. The vast majority of abortions are done based on convenience. The real argument is not there's a group that wants to force women, even if their life is on the line, to have a child, and a group that's just trying to allow them, if their life is on the line, to be able to have an abortion. Every area in the United States agrees legally that it's okay to abort the baby under those circumstances. The real argument here is, should someone be allowed, based on convenience and based on just, I don't feel like having a baby yet? The argument is, should that be legal? And the Harris policy is yes. They won't come out and say, yes, we want women to be able to have abortions for any and every reason. They're not saying that. When you read their policies, there is no restriction. There is no restriction, which means you are allowed to do that for any reason. Now, does that mean most people will go ahead and say, oh, for any reason I would do that? Of course not. But for the same reason we have laws that say you're not allowed to kill an individual, even though most individuals would never even imagine going up and actually taking someone's life, we still have laws in place because we value people's lives. When it comes to the abortion issue, Kamala's stance and her campaign and policy stance is, we're going to illustrate this in a way that comes off as though the other side wants to make women have to give birth even if their life is on the line. And our stance is, we're going to save women for those women that really, they're going to die if they don't have this. We're trying to save them because they don't want them to have access to it, which is not true at all. What their real stance is we want people to be able to have abortions if they want them for whatever reason, and we don't believe you should tell anybody what to do. Now, I hear this a lot. People say, the government shouldn't tell me what to do with my own body. Like, this is the only area that you don't have any laws except for this. Is not true. We have laws of what you can and can't do with your own body already. You can't take certain drugs. You can't go prostitute yourself. So we already have those laws in place. So whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, take those definitions into account and see what's really going on. And yes, I know people say, well, there were 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 women that died after the Roe v. Wade was overturned. And maybe if Roe v. Wade wasn't overturned, they wouldn't have died. The case was always something more complex. The case was never, if they had the abortion, this would save them. The case was usually, there was a dead child already in there and they didn't go to the hospital. Or there was a dead child there and the doctor second guessed if it was legal or not. That has nothing to do with the law. That has to do with someone not understanding what the law is, which is important as to why people, voters, we all need to know what is an abortion and what is not. So keep that in mind, regardless of where you fall on this issue. Keep that in mind. Comment below your thoughts on who you think has the better stance on this. Where do you stand in the tax bracket when it comes to abortion, when it comes to healthcare access, when it comes to immigration, legal or illegal immigration? What are your thoughts? Where do you stand? And what policies are most important for you? Think about that and then vote based on that. But what you don't want to do is vote based on Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt at the RNC, or Beyonce speaking at Kamala Harris's rallies, or ads that you see on TV. Take time to look at these policies and see, how is this going to impact your life, your children's lives, and your grandchildren's lives after this election is over. Remember, The truth always cuts through the noise, so let's keep slicing, finding the truth together, and let's have a good conversation about it. Thanks for checking out this video. I'll see you guys next time.